Hello and good morning, everybody. Hello and good morning and welcome to the first show, the launch show of what we hope to become a permanent fixture around here. Of course, we're going to be with you on weekends. The name of our show is entitled The Weekend Wellness Workshop. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, medical doctor and alternative and integrative practitioner over the last 20 years. My offices are essentially in two areas of Pittsburgh, one in the South Hills area, known as McMurray or Peters Township, another in Monroeville, just off of Moss Side Boulevard. We'll be talking to you about how it may be that you want to meet up someday in the future after you're fairly convinced that working on the alternative side of the tracks may be to your benefit. The programs that we offer at our offices are detailed and meant to be able to take you from wherever we may find you with your health status and take you to an optimal level of functioning heretofore that you've never seen. The fact that that's possible and it's been occupying my time for over the last 20 years to get patients to that level is the reason that I bring that message to you today and look forward to being with you on the weekends. We're going to be here at 10 o'clock each and every Saturday and share with you topics that I hope will enlighten you and promote you and encourage you to find out more about the alternative medical approaches, the integrative medical approaches to achieving this thing we call optimal health. You may not know much about the alternative world. It's my job, I hope, to be able to convince you that this is a step well taken, that if you do so, you can expect that you can emerge out the other side with a gain in your health status that heretofore you have been unable to pursue and just have never had a roadmap laid out for you to be able to do just that. Now, as a medical doctor, I've worn and still do wear a number of hats. Yes, I'm a trained medical doctor. Specialty, by the way, and it's been a while since I've been doing that one specialty, is as an anesthesiologist. For many years here in various hospitals throughout Western Pennsylvania. But about 17 years ago, that all changed. There was an allure to me, something that pulled me from the operating rooms out into the office practice world, and it's been where I've resided ever since. I enjoy treating problems in a way, quite honestly, I was never trained for as a medical doctor. It allows me, by the way, with these multiple hats, to take a look at my own profession and see where the holes are and where the problems are and where the problems lie. I hope to be able to bring those holes and those problems to your attention. I think once brought to your attention, it will allow you to make a decision as to whether or not you, in fact, would like to be managed by a doctor like myself. But let's take a look at a few points to find out how we can lay that groundwork and answer a question today that I hope by the end of the hour you're pretty comfortable with. And the question would be one that I certainly would have. And that question would be, hey, should I consult with an alternative doctor? Sometimes, by the way, known as an integrative doctor. Let's just say this. The doctors that I'm talking about are very non-conventional, and that's actually a good thing. Now, when it comes to medicine as we know it, I got to tell you that when it comes to acute medicine and the need for medical intervention, you live in the greatest country in the world and you can receive the most outstanding care possible in the world through a conventional medical model. There is no better model out there than being treated at one of our local hospitals by the tertiary interventions that are possible there sometime, and we hope in the very near future. But folks, there's a different story out here. Because if we're talking about chronic disease and chronic medicine and the ability to correct it, folks, we have failed, and we have failed miserably. When I say we, I'm talking about the entire, and I do mean the entire medical profession. When it comes to chronic disease, pretty much can't do squat. I contend that on the alternative side of the street, the side that I walk on, these problems have solutions. They have a way there is no assurance that the medicine will work, and that not necessarily can you expect to get relief by utilizing the medicine at all. So when it works well, you're happy, your doctor's happy, and the symptom is gone, at least temporarily, but the problem that led to that symptom rages on. I can't tell you how frequently we have had patients. Let's take another example. Let's talk about high blood pressure. You know, I've oftentimes asked patients about whether they may suffer from high blood pressure, and I've had answers something like this. Well, you know, I had blood pressure once, but my doctor put me on blood pressure medicine, and I really don't have blood pressure problems anymore. Now, with an incredulous look on my face, it was imperative that I explain to this patient that, you know what, the high blood pressure that you suffer from, you absolutely still have. That, thank goodness, there was a medicine that could be used to get your blood pressure in the safe ranges, but in no way, shape, or form are you going to be able to achieve the ability to reverse that problem so as to not really ever have the problem again. You still have blood pressure issues. If you quit taking the medicine, your blood pressure issues will return. If I tell you that it's possible to actually correct high blood pressure so as to be able to eliminate those medicines, so as to make you optimal in this particular arena, you might seriously doubt me, but it's something I do each and every day. I've done so for a long time. Patients come to me usually with a laundry list of medications, and we discuss the plan that needs to be put into play so as to be able to alleviate and correct the problem so that at some point, we hope in the near future, maybe in the distant future, we can eliminate that medicine because it's no longer needed. If you don't need to take a medicine, you obviously shouldn't need to take it anymore. And in the alternative world, the integrative world, this is absolutely a possibility and highly likely we're going to be able to reach that goal. Let me bring another point to you. I think it illustrates another pitfall of conventional medicine. What if, and I say what if, you go to your doctor and you say to your doctor, you know, I'm feeling wonderful. I mean, I feel great. I exercise a lot. I mean, I am optimal. I'm running the marathons. I'm doing this and that. Look, I'm feeling so good. What could you tell me to do so that I can stay just like I am? I mean, I don't want to change. This is the way I want it to stay from now well into the future. Now, I want you to keep a good eye on your doctor's eyes because at that point, I think his eyes are going to widen just a bit. Because at that point, I believe you have stumped the band. I believe without posing a problem that the doctor would try to solve through the use of his medicine, you can see that there is no answer to be given. The doctor would say, well, look, do you have a problem? You have no problems? Well, he may say, why don't you, and I think the conversation will end pretty much similarly, no matter what doctor you may be discussing this with. Why don't you just keep doing what you're doing and then come to me when you have a problem? And that'll be the end of the conversation. You have learned that when it comes to making you optimal, that won't be possible with conventional medical management. You can have your disease be brought to optimal, but you can't ever get to optimal through that management. There's just no way. The doctor in all his training never learned how to take a healthy person and make them healthier. If you were to ask me that question, you better have an hour once a week for the next month to go over exactly how we're going to accomplish that, because there are so many activities and approaches to make you optimal that it makes my job the enjoyable job that it really is. Got another story I think it also tells the story rather well. You see, my then 7-year-old child, he's 16 years old now, but when he was in second grade, I got a study guide sent home. And I was supposed to help him prepare for an up-and-coming test that the teacher was going to be giving on personal health. And one of the study guide questions was, name the ways that you can be healthy and optimally healthy, or something to that effect. And the answer to the question was, and my then 7-year-old answered it right on cue. The answer to the question was, number 1, don't smoke. Number 2, eat a very healthy diet. And number 3, get plenty of exercise. Those were the 3 answers to the questions. They were hit right on by my 7-year-old, who, if I recall correctly, did a very good job on that first exam. Now, many years later, I am having a discussion with my board-certified cardiologist, and as the conversation went, we got around to a very similar question. Hey, doctor, how is it that you advise your patients to become the most healthy possible? And then he said to me, oh, that's no problem. Number 1, we insist that they never smoke. 2, we encourage them to eat a lot of healthy food. And 3, we tell them to get plenty of exercise. And it was at that point that I realized how insane the conventional medical community really is. You see, to me, the 7-year-old taking a health course in an elementary school seemed to know exactly the answer given by a board-certified cardiologist and how to be healthy, how to maintain that health over a lifetime. It pretty much sums up why it will be that if those are the 3 ways that a very educated doctor tries to make his patient healthy, that he'll never quite seem to hit the mark. Those 3 things, by the way, are extremely important. Don't misunderstand me. But there is so much to do. So much to do that the conventional doctor is not trained to be able to help you achieve. And that's where I believe the alternative medical community comes in. As an alternative doctor and working this side of the street for years, really telling you there's no school you go to acquire the information I've had to acquire over a lifetime's worth of work. It comes to you slowly. If you're lucky, you are mentored by others, and I certainly had that opportunity presented to me many times over the course of these now 17 to 20 years. Great individuals, pioneers in the field, and able to teach someone who was very interested in learning more what the keys to success might be to take on the issue of optimal health. At this point, this stage of my career, I am called upon and expected to do the mentoring and of course, do have younger doctors that continually ask me to help them acquire knowledge on how they can become optimal or make their patients optimal, as I once had to learn from other doctors who work closely with me. So this issue of alternative medicine is quite a skilled science. I hope to be able to convey that science to you over the many weeks and up-and-coming future. And we started today, folks, with the Weekend Wellness Workshop here on the Talk Radio Pittsburgh at 10 o'clock. Now I'm going to take a break. And on my return, I've got a guest to present you, an icon in the alternative realm for a lifetime's worth of work. He hails from the northern part of the city. His practice was in Cranberry, and I'm going to be asking him why it should be that patients should be looking to be managed by an alternative doctor. We'll be right back in a moment with my good friend, Dr. Don Mantell. Hey, hello, and welcome back. This is Dr. Dennis Courtney with the Weekend Wellness Workshop, launching our first show today. We're trying to find out an answer to a question I believe, or at least I hope, that many of you who are listening to me today, and maybe for the first time, hearing an approach to achieving optimal health, may begin to sort of check out the arena of non-conventional medicine, of alternative integrative medicine. And that's why we here each and every weekend to try to help you learn more about how to become optimally healthy. Today I've asked a friend of mine, to come aboard and begin to maybe help out a little more and letting you come to grips with that decision. Should you look for an alternative doctor and be managed by an alternative doctor? Well, when it comes to that question, I think there's no finer exemplary evidence of alternative medicine than the gentleman who's our guest today. He's been an alternative practitioner, a medical doctor in the Northern Hills area, the Cranberry area, for many, many years. I have been a admirer of afar before I ever met this gentleman. He was a shining and guiding light here in Western Pennsylvania for how to treat patients alternatively. I asked him to come to board today so we could discuss this matter and have you listen in and get behind the scenes on whether you should be looking for an alternative doctor or not. My guest today is Dr. Dawn Mantell. Let's say good morning and welcome aboard, Dawn. Thanks for calling up today and allowing me to invade your weekend morning.
Morning, Dr. Courtney. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Dr. Dawn Mantell, you were, if not the first, you were absolutely one of the first that brought the ability of patients to be managed in a different way, certainly in a way that you were never trained to as a medical doctor, but you went out and carved out an area of this city where many patients that came under your care were improved by that care and allowed them to move toward this optimal health that I'm talking about today. So let me ask you, and I'm just dying to get to a couple questions that maybe hear from you your answer to these questions for the first time. Is it, or why should, here's the question then, why should somebody look to be managed by an integrative or alternative doctor? What advantages would that kind of management provide them? And I'm just dying to hear your answer because we've never had that discussion before. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, that's a pretty interesting question, and how I'd approach that is by saying that, modern medicine can do a lot of wonderful things, but it's mainly in the realm of acute problems. For example, if you break a leg, you have an intestinal obstruction, you need emergency surgery, you're having some kind of crisis like a kidney stone or gallbladder stone or some type of obstruction like I mentioned, then, medicine can be life-saving. But unfortunately, for most of your chronic problems, like cancer, arthritis, allergies, multiple sclerosis, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and the list goes on, autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, scleroderma. Modern medicine doesn't really have a clue how to correct these problems. They can treat symptoms, which is just palliative, with different medications and surgical procedures, what have you, but they never correct the problem. So this is a big, big concern, a big problem, especially in today's world, because things are getting worse, not better, as far as the toxicity in our water, the air, the food. We have to contend with electromagnetic pollution from cell phone towers and all the other microwave ovens, and on and on. We're exposed to this electromagnetic smog or pollution. So there's, thousands of chemicals in our environment that are affecting us every day. So how can we stay healthy in this environment? And, when you go to see your normal medical doctor, what happens usually is they wind up prescribing you some kind of medication So that's going to add to your toxicity, not help it, because any drug, by definition, has to be detoxified by your liver and cleared by your kidney, and can have all kinds of side effects. And just as an aside here, the third leading cause of death in the United States is because of iatrogenic, which means prescribed medications from doctors, either from the side effects or wrongly prescribed medications. So what I had started doing 35 years ago, I started out in physical medicine rehabilitation, and I was very discouraged, very depressed, because we'd have patients typically coming in for back surgery 2, 3, 4, 5 times, what we call low back failure, because they'd have surgery to supposedly correct the problem, then they'd develop scar tissue. So then they'd have to have the scar tissue removed. Same thing with carpal tunnel syndrome, where they would do surgery. And, this was, to say, depressing, is to say the least. I kept saying to myself, there has to be a better answer than what medicine is doing. Some of these patients was more palliative care because they had spinal cord injuries, paraplegics, quadriplegics, so that's a different situation.
Sure is.
But for some of these other situations, it was just horrendous. So, fortunately for me, you talk about me being a pioneer, I happened to make the acquaintance of Dr. Murray Susser, who was probably one of the first alternative medical doctors in Western Pennsylvania, and he took me under his wing, and I learned from him for about 6 months. Then he went out to Oklahoma and eventually California and sort of forced me to be on my own, sink or swim, and that's when I started out in Cranberry Township and developed a very extensive holistic medical clinic.
You sure did.
My intention and my mission and what I was passionate about was truly helping patients by working on the cause of the disease, removing that, and getting them better permanently, not giving them some kind of palliative treatment.
All right, Don, let's do this. We're coming up on a break. I want you to hold that thought. When we come back, we're going to move further into the illustrious career of Dr. Don Mantell and answer that question a little clearer about, should you be managed by an alternative doctor? So we'll be right back, and we'll be back with Dr. Don Mantell right after a news break. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to the Weekend Wellness Workshop. We're here in our launch program today, our first program, when we hope to be a just wonderful weekend occasion where you'll come to be able to appreciate how you can maintain or achieve optimal health. Excuse me. Today, a guest of mine, literally an icon in alternative health and management of alternative health by a medical doctor, is named Dr. Don Mantell. His practice was in the Cranberry area for years. He says 35 years ago. Dr. Mantell, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
35 years ago, I was thinking off air, we've come a long way in the arena of awareness. The public is so much more aware now than they ever were back then. Do you see any striking either similarities or differences in the patients of that era, which I believe they themselves were pioneers? I mean, they truly did venture out, if I think of it, into a realm that was definitely not charted very well. Yet, here we are today with so much that is available to learn about the other options available. What do you think? Tell me about back then, 35 years ago. When you hung that shingle, were people knocking down your door to get at you or what?
Well, I have to say today patients in general are a lot more aware of alternative holistic treatments. You have people like Dr. Oz on mainstream medicine, even on the news, they're talking about nutrition all the time. People are aware of gluten-free diets. I mean, even with the vaccination issue, people are questioning whether there is dangers involved with getting vaccines. I mean, back then, this was unheard of to talk about this on mainstream television and to discuss these subjects. So, a lot of education went into it, but, word of mouth is the most powerful advertising that I'm aware of. And when you start helping people, the word gets out. And I did have a tremendous interest in cancer, and there are very few doctors that want to approach that disease and treat it in a more broad-based way.
Oh, sure.
So that, it was like a matter of supply and demand. There were just not very many doctors at all that were doing what I was doing. So in that respect, we did get a tremendous our share of patients, so that wasn't a problem. But there was a lot of education that had to go on because the general public, the awareness wasn't there, and especially in a place like Pittsburgh, compared to New York or California, we seem to lag behind in a lot of progressive ideas.
Well, let me ask you this, Dr. Mantell. Patients listening to us today, listeners listening to us today, hopefully would like to see become patients and maybe hearing about the message from a couple of doctors who've been well entrenched in treating patients for a long time now. And we'll have to come to grips with the decision as, do I really want to consult with an alternative practitioner? What would you say could help them in making that decision? Why should they take the time to see an additional practitioner over and above their own family doctor? Is it to their benefit? How would they be able to reconcile?
Well, I would answer that very simply. Are they happy with the situation they're in now as far as the medical care they're getting and as far as their health situation? Do they feel they're in optimum health and doing everything they can to be in optimum health? If the answer is yes, then I wouldn't change anything. But I would say for most people, the answer would be no. And that is, if you're taking any kind of medication to treat your medical condition, is there maybe another way where you don't have to take the drugs and there's a non-toxic, safer way to treat that problem? So what I tell patients is you have everything to gain, nothing to lose. If you can keep an open mind and, hear what we have to offer, then you can make that decision. Do you want to go forward with this or not? No one's going to twist your arm. But, if you don't go out of that medical box, you're really limiting yourself in what you can achieve as far as optimal health.
Let me ask you this. Is the
doctor knowledgeable in the cause of your disease process? Is he doing everything possible to reverse it or correct it, or is he just putting a Band-Aid on it and giving you a medication to treat the symptoms?
Yeah, that same thing just keeps emerging. The medicine is all unto itself the only tool that the poor man has, and not really any assurance that the medicine will work. I think that's the first thing to say. But even if it's working, sometimes you get deluded and think it all is well, and it's definitely not well. That disease will continue to rage onward, and it'll manifest and continue to deteriorate to the point where it may not be able to be controlled. The symptom, that is, will no longer be able to be controlled.
Right.
Let me ask you this question, Dr. Mantell. The role of a PCP, I think everybody listening to us right now, or most of them, have a PCP, a primary care physician. And I actually encourage every one of my patients to get their primary physician, to keep their primary physician. Nobody should be jettisoning their primary care physician. I'm an anesthesiologist by training. You were a muscle specialist by training in rehabilitation. Patients really do need to have a PCP and maintain them. They know them very well. They know their medical history. And I say they hold the keys to the hospital door in their hand should a hospital visitation ever be necessary. How did you feel about the role of the PCP when you were managing these patients all these 35 years?
Oh, I think extremely important because, as you said, I did not have a hospital practice, because I couldn't practice in a hospital what I do in private practice. So if they need to go into a hospital, and then they, testing is always very important, blood testing, keeping a monitor on their blood pressure, thyroid function, cholesterol, this type of thing. So we're not throwing away the bath with the baby, throwing away
with the bath water, yeah.
Right. So that is important. But one thing I wanted to say, in working in the area of cancer, when you say, why should people look into an alternative, this is something I think is so important. Patients need to talk with their oncologist and say, can you give me statistics, how many people survive this disease, and if so, can you give me their name so I could talk to them? Would you have your family go through these treatments if they had this problem? And they might be very surprised at what they learn.
By the way, a most recent study, this is probably the time to interject, 72% of oncologists, when asked if they had cancer or members of their family had cancer, would they pursue the same treatment that they recommend to others? 72%.
Wow.
Oh.
That's an extreme.
72. So maybe there's a little bit of enlightenment there.
Right.
Sure.
And, when it comes to your health and your life, you can't go wrong with getting more information. And, as I keep going back to what I said before, the third leading cause of death in this country is from medications. So even though, like you say, you might think everything's fine, that medication could be causing some serious effects in your body.
Yeah, that thing with the medications, I think the total number of deaths attributed to conventional medicine a year is on the order of 790,000. Now, not all those are medication related, but over 400,000 of them have a medication component. And by the way, for those who are listening to us now, they can't be surprised about that kind of number. All they have to do is walk to their television set and listen to any commercial for any drug, which, by the way, we never had those commercials playing when we first started our practice, did we? They've come up since. But isn't it a little scary to hear all that fast talk right at the end?
And one of them is usually death.
And you have to walk away from your TV set going, oh, my God, who in their right mind would ever take that stuff? Well, you know what? Plenty of people do, because doctors still prescribe it. It amazes me how, with that kind of a thing in the background all the time, patients have got to be concerned about.
Yeah, now you notice also you have lawyers advertising for class action suits or whatever for being harmed by a certain medication. We never saw anything like that before.
Well, this big book that we call a PDR,
right,
Physician Desk Reference, for each drug that's made, there are about 4 or 5 pages in a PDR devoted to each drug. 80% of the write-up has to do with the side effects and risks of taking that drug. And I should add, Dawn, that to make it in the book, the only way you're allowed to report, the drug company can report it, is if when put on that drug only and with no other drug, these are all the things that can happen to you. Look at what happens if you were put on 2 medicines or 3 medicines or 4. The interactions on that alone would take those 8 pages and swell them into 80 pages without a problem. It's nuts. It's crazy. It's almost indefensible anymore. I believe it's the awareness of things like that, Dawn, that makes my job a lot easier than when your job was 35 years ago, because the public is now aware and answering the question about, hey, should I see an alternative doctor who's trained in optimizing me? Would it be a good choice for me? I believe the answer is much easier today than it was in your era, and still in your era, they knocked down your door, didn't they?
Absolutely. And that PDR, that's a big page in small print.
No,
I mean,
and it's just loaded with one reaction after another. So we're very familiar with the PDR, but I don't think the public was aware that PDR is only filled with references when a patient who's on no other medicine takes just that one medicine alone. Goodness gracious, what can happen with the
And people are deceiving themselves if they think their doctor knows all the side effects. Most of the time he doesn't have a clue. That's why he has to refer to that book.
Well, yes, the awareness is out there about these drugs, and it's just not taking you to a good place. And if you get a benefit from it, you almost have to thank your lucky stars, because there's not necessarily a guarantee that you will get the benefit, but the likelihood is you are going to get the side effect, are you not?
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's why it's a drug.
All right, Don, look, I want to thank you so much for coming aboard today on our first show here on the Weekend Wellness Workshop. I was really proud to be able to introduce you once again to Western Pennsylvania. Don, you started the doggone thing. The ball's been rolling down the hill quite nicely, but it was formed at the top of the hill by a guy named Don Mantell out in the Cranberry area. Don, I hope to be able to bring you back in the future many times to discuss whatever may be coming up, but I wanted to thank you today for allowing me to invade your weekend morning. I'll see you, my good friend.
Absolutely, and it was my pleasure, Dennis. You're doing such great work. That's the least I can do now.
All right, Don, carry on. Say hello to Jackie.
I will.
All right.
Bye.
There you have it, folks. Dr. Don Mantell. What I want to do is take a short break. Come back. I want to introduce you to another guest. Now, he's not a medical doctor, but to me, I've learned as much from this gentleman as I've ever taught him. He's such a savvy patient/practitioner. I said, David, you got to come aboard on my first show. So we're going to be back in a moment with David Fish. Be right back. Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Here we are at the first show of the Weekend Wellness Workshop. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, medical doctor, practicing in the South Hills area and Monroeville area, Pittsburgh. Been working in this arena for a lot of years, and really enjoy the opportunity of bringing you Pittsburghers a message of what I do and have been doing for so long. Today is an attempt to try to answer the question as to whether or not you should be consulting with an alternative practitioner. And I do mean medical doctor, alternative practitioner. There are so many helpful modalities out there, but today really is focusing on the medical doctor component. Now I have a guest who I asked to come aboard today. A friendship has developed with this gentleman over a long time, but it started because of his acumen and his intelligence in the alternative arena. I have benefited greatly from this relationship over the years. And when I thought about the first show, I said, I got to ask Dave to come aboard. Folks, he's a practitioner in his own right, involved with energy medicine to a level, well, took me a while to get there with him, but I think I'm up at least on par with understanding the gentleman. I'd like to introduce you to him now. His name is David Fish. Good morning, David, and welcome aboard.
Well, good morning, Dr. Courtney, and congratulations on your new show.
David, very excited about it. As you well know, we have been doing these shows for a long time, but now switching to the big time up here with Talk Radio 1320 here in Pittsburgh. And I asked you to come aboard today because I felt that as a practitioner and as a patient of mine, that you might have a opinion of the question that I've been asking since I took to the airway today, which is, why should listeners I'm saying are out there listening to us right now, and I would like them to ask the question of themselves, which should be, why should I consult with an alternative medical doctor? What benefit could that be for me? And with that in mind, I'd like you to take that one. And we just had Don Mantell. I know you know him very well. And now we're going to ask you, as a patient/practitioner, why should somebody listening to us today consult with a medical doctor, an alternative medical doctor? What benefits would be achievable for them?
Well, when communicating, Dr. Courtney, I usually try to start off with, well, is there a problem? and let people know what the problem is. And I think most people out there today don't realize what a problem there is. And so now that you're on 1320, as you say, in the big time, but people like George Norrie and Coast to Coast and Glenn Beck, the people who listen to those kinds of shows are going to know what I'm talking about here. Do you remember the movie The Matrix?
I absolutely remember The Matrix. Keanu Reeves.
With Keanu Reeves?
Yeah.
It was a blue pill and red pill.
There was, yeah.
Anyway, blue pill people could take the blue pill, and you wake up in the morning and believe what you want to believe. But the red pill people, he offered, we're going to go down the rabbit hole and see how far it goes. We're going to stay in Wonderland, and you'll be able to see reality. So that's what we're talking about here. To see your medical doctor is just believing what you want to believe, but going to an alternative doctor like yourself and listening to this show, you're going to start to see reality.
What does reality consist of, Dave, from your perspective, as you try to explain to our listeners?
Go on there, Doc.
Pardon me? Are you there, David?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought we broke up there a minute.
Okay, you're back. You're back with us, David. What does that mean, the reality steps in?
Okay, Doc. Just drive up and down any major highway, and what do you see? Rite Aid, Walgreens, CVS. Go into any store, a Giant Eagle, a Walmart. What do you see? A pharmacy. And you see the people in line. I call them the zombies. And now, riding around, Doc, I used to see bandit signs for, like, we'll buy your real estate. Well, now you see bandit signs for things like Suboxone and get off your drugs. And like you and Dr. Mantell said, the TV ads, you got to be crazy. You can, like, scuba dive in Bermuda, romp in the meadow with your grandchildren, climb a mountain, but then that guy, that Guinness Book of World Records fast-speaking guy, lists as side effects, dizziness, nausea, bleeding from the rectum, and sudden death. Okay, guys, as you said, 2 commercials later, Willie Cheatham Howe comes on to offer to get you money if you were damaged by one of those drugs.
Oh, yeah, the lawyer. That's right. The next commercial break is the lawyer saying, if you've been harmed, call us. It's pretty crazy, David. It's I think that the insanity of it all now more than ever is coming across, but it has to make you weary if you're the person listening to this and you're afflicted and you're diseased and you're seeing your medical doctor and you're taking that crazy stuff and you may be asking, how do I stop this insanity? I hope that with the show we're doing and the guests that we're going to be bringing up in the up-and-coming future, that you'll begin to see a picture emerge, ladies and gentlemen, that puts you in healthy light and gets you out of the disastrous potential that you are wound up and wrapped up in. My good medical colleagues, unfortunately, don't have that training. As a medical doctor myself, I had the training that they had, and I know its shortcomings. I hope to be able to point them out to you as time goes on, David, and the rest of you listening. And I know that, Dave, you have walked the walk, talked the talk, and you're one healthy specimen yourself, but you still see me to tweak your health to even achieve even greater levels of optimum. And with just a minute or two to go, and I know we're sort of cut you at the tail end, but wrap this up by making your final point, David.
Well, Doc, people who are going to come and see you are going to deal with natural energies, frequencies, natural molecules, natural substances, and not these patented poisons that have only about 100 years old. They call it conventional medicine. Hello, this is pretty brand new, 100 years old. These patented poisons that are the medical matrix, leading cause of death. It's not third. Dr. Mantell's information is a little old. It's number one, like you said, between 700,000 and 800,000 people a year. Cancer and
by the way, heart attacks in 2001 claimed 690,000. So it's number 2. We're bumping them off at a higher rate than the heart disease is, and it's pretty doggone embarrassing. David, look.
What could your medical doctor do if you took away his pen and prescription pad? And remember Thomas Edison, the doctor of the future, will give no medicine, but will interest his patient in the care of the human frame, diet, and the cause and prevention of disease. Well
said. Way to top it off and bring it to its final point. David, thank you so much for coming aboard today and sharing just a little bit. I hope to bring you back up in coming weeks. You've got many more messages to give. I hope you'll share some of that with us here on the Weekend Wellness Workshop. And I thank you for being involved with the launch show, our first one today. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. And Faith would love to do some food for you.
All right. We'll get Faith involved. Life's partner, Faith Dolagowski, will bring her on board too. So, folks, it's getting close to the end of our first show. I hope that we've titillated you a bit. We've stimulated you to think a bit more about how to take charge of your own health and do so to allow you to achieve optimal health. That's our mission. That's our goal. We'll see you next week where we get to part 2 of our message. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney saying so long for the Weekend Wellness Workshop.